Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? I am Jonathan Beard of Blevins, father of 4, and I think that most media should be monitored very closely because they're trying to poison your children.
They're trying to poison your children.
The children!
Someone think of the children. I am Katie, MrsRuvi, and I have 5 kids and a husband and all sorts of awesome things. And I think that, you do need to monitor it closely, but it's a good thing that you can use to grow in relationship with your kids. And that's really the whole point of this podcast, is to let parents know what is in a piece of content they may want to shield their kids from, what kind of conversations come up that they can't avoid, that they want to shepherd them through, and how they can use a piece of media to share in their kids' life experience.
Great job. And today we're talking about Captain America: Brave New World.
It's America. It's a brave new world.
I thought you were correcting me for a second. I was like,
no,
what? I said
I'm
it
just
correctly.
Going along with you.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters until midnight last night.
That is so late.
Me and this couple behind me that was absolutely trolling me the entire time.
They were trolling you?
Yep.
Low taper fade mean?
No, they didn't know who I was. They were just
messing with you.
Yeah, like weird noises to see how I'd react. Not like that, like farting noises and stuff.
Okay. Little kid, like young people?
Probably their 20s.
Oh gosh, kids need to grow
Yeah.
up. Okay, a lot of this is going to be me talking about how kids need to grow up a little bit. Anyway.
Of Captain America?
I think for the rest of for the foreseeable future, I'm just going to talk about how the kids are infantilized and we all just need to do better forever.
Why don't you describe what Captain America is about? Because you're so much better at that than I am.
So
let me try. Steve Rogers is no longer Captain America. Continue.
No, Steve Rogers has not been Captain America for a long time. So this picks up after the events of the Disney Plus series. Sam Wilson is now the Captain America. He used to be the Falcon. Now he's Captain America after Steve Rogers passed off his shield at the end of Endgame, or Endgame, at the end of Endgame. And then this is the events that come after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we've got Thaddeus Ross, who is now the president, having had this whole off-camera fight with his daughter about Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk. And then he had also locked up a scientist known as the Leader, who was present in the previous Hulk movies, but a lot of people didn't know that because not a lot of people followed the Hulk saga the way that they might have, at least in the early years. And so Leader is in this like secret West Virginia government bunker, helping to keep Thaddeus Ross alive with gamma radiation in pill form, as one does. And so now Thaddeus has this like secret where it's not so secret that he is the Red Hulk, right? And so we've got Captain America trying to save everybody from this plot that's sort of convoluted, where they're mind controlling people to make them into sort of super soldiers in the same way that they had with the Winter Soldier. It's very complicated is what I'm saying. Yada, yada, Captain America saves the day.
Wow, spoilers.
Oh, we all knew it was going to happen.
I don't know. I was told by the villain in the movie that he was going to die.
Captain America?
Yeah, and he didn't. Spoiler.
No, he did not. So
I actually really like the movie.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed reviews. I've not really watched a lot of Marvel stuff lately unless we have to for the show, because I'm just kind of over all of it. But I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked the movie. Only weird thing for me, and I saw it trending on Twitter as well, President turns into the big Red Hulk and immediately everyone starts shooting at him. Wild stuff.
Well, he's sort of knocking down everything and trying to kill people.
No, but even before that, right before that, like he turns into the Hulk and then they start shooting.
Yeah, that is true.
Like that's crazy. Just immediately, boom, no longer the president.
Yeah, giant Hulk. And
they all know they
their
can't.
Their previous exposure to Hulk has been good Hulk. So
correct, and they also know that bullets don't hurt.
The Hulk.
So why
do they keep
shoot
doing
him? It makes no sense. That was the only weird part.
Some welts that were visible.
Kind of.
I remember looking at the screen and being like, "Oh, he's getting welts." It was interesting.
Why can bullets bounce off of him, but the knives pierce his skin?
I don't know.
Anyway, that was my only complaint. I thought it was a really well done movie. I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. I will say it felt a little more for mature audiences than other Marvel movies that I remember watching. Like seems to be a lot of death. Like oftentimes in Marvel, at least from my memory, there's not, except for when they wiped out half the population in the Avengers. But you know what I mean? Like there were some pretty intimate death moments, or some near death moments that happened. Like the guy with the sound, and he gave that guy a heart attack like right in front of the screen, and he just like falls over and dies. Yeah.
How was that deeply different from the death of Loki in your mind?
No, I thought that was like dark as well.
Okay. I mean, I get it.
Like it didn't feel like a movie I would take my 9-year-old to go see, is what I'm saying. It felt like a movie that was made for teenagers.
So I think that I see what you're saying, that it is a little bit dark. There is a little bit of like death and And it was in the weeds, I would say. Like, you need to kind of know your Marvel lore in order to know what's going on, because unless you know what's going on with Thaddeus Ross and his daughter, it just seems like he has a weird, strained relationship, and you're kind of like, what was that about? And then all of a sudden the Winter Soldier's running for Congress, and you're like, what's that about? So you kind of need to be able to pull from other resources, but that's sort of a theme with Marvel, and that is very much the nature of comic books. So like growing up, reading things like when this was first coming out in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, when people were reading the comics of these were for children, and they were killed. And like, you can think of the Batman comic where Bane breaks Batman's back, and like it's up close, it's personal, it's dark, it's that kind of thing. It's always been that with comic books, and that was always okay for children. Like, it was understood that children were going to encounter good guys versus bad guys, and the bad guys were going to be intensely bad, and that they were going to do bad things. And so, well, let's do it this way. What do you think we need to shield kids from? Like, what's the things in there that parents would like, for sure, maybe you'll have some concerns?
I mean, there's death, obviously there's violence, Marvel. The villain is pretty scary, like pretty scary looking. And it's only scary looking because it's not a cartoon.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's real. So like the entire movie in cartoon form or comic form, totally awesome for me for kids. But if you bring, if I would have grown up with all those Spider-Man and Batman villains looking real, that would not have been the same thing as when I watched the cartoon.
Okay.
And then the heart attack death scene, I thought it was cool, but I'm an adult. I thought that was like pretty graphic. I'm going to turn this knob and the noise is going to make your heart stop. And the guy was like, no. And then it was crazy.
Well, I mean, from like a death perspective, he just clutches his chest and falls down.
I know, but it's up close and personal.
Okay.
So I would just say, for me, those are the things that I would shield kids from.
Okay, so I would say that it's...
I wouldn't let them know. If I'm going to watch it with my kids, I'm not going to tell them to close their eyes.
Yeah.
I would wait until I think my kids are old enough for those parts.
Sure. I would say that there's violence and they really enjoy the S word. Like, they say the S word constantly, and it's kind of bizarre. Like, it's like the only swear word they know. Weird to me how often, as opposed to like any other swear, it just was always the one. It felt kind of odd. But that was really the main shield things, that there's violence and then there's a ton of S words. And then for me, those are shepherd conversations. Like, if your kid is scared of things, you talk about, well, what are you scared about? What is it about the fact that this guy is close up that makes it scary? Like, those conversations are things that you have up close, or that you have with your kid to like talk them through this media to make the media usable. But when you're talking about like shielding kids from dark themes or mean people or scary overtones, I think that that's kind of a problem. We talked a couple weeks ago about like the mental health of Gen Z and how you have to look at what they're doing in large numbers that wasn't done in prior generations. And prior generations, we weren't really shielding kids from those kinds of things. Like, it was common we're going to talk about some older movies like The Fox and the Hound and things like that in a couple of weeks here, where there were those kinds of dark themes that were happening. And so you look at this like shielding and the fact that kids are now fragile. They can't deal with it. Like, when we were 16 years old, we were borrowing our parents' car without permission and going out into desert parties and stuff like that. Whereas, my 14-year-old son can't order his own food without feeling uncomfortable. Now, that's not actually my kids. My kids are great. But you see that meme, on Instagram all the time where they're like, I was going to parties in the desert and my kid can't order their own food at a restaurant. Like, this is a huge disconnect between this like very shy new generation of kids who has been shielded from everything. And so even fictional peril freaks them out so badly that they can't watch it. And I think it's because we look at movies like this and say, this comic book movie is too violent, it's too scary. And so your kid can't deal with theoretical violence or theoretical scariness or theoretical bad guys, even when they're so fake that they are literally the Hulk.
Yeah, that's not why I want to shield them from it.
Why?
Because like they can experience all the things you just said without watching a Marvel movie.
Where in nature are they going to experience?
You just said
Red
Fox
Hulk?
and the Hound. You just
Red
said
Hulk?
there's no. I'm just saying and cartoon version. That's all. So for me, the movie is PG-13 for a reason. If our generation of people who think kids can do whatever they want and be on screens all the time thinks that it's not appropriate for someone who's under 13, then I'm with them.
But here's the thing: it's not that they can't be exposed to it if they're under 13. It's that they need parental guidance if they're under 13.
Right, but still, like it's
just
recommended. I hear you, but there's a million other things out there to watch that are awesome, and I don't think that media has anything to do with whether or not our kids are brave someday. Like, they can learn that by going on adventures with their parents, by experiencing
Sure.
actual life.
But I don't
not
think
by
that-
watching Captain America.
I don't think those things are mutually exclusive, though.
I do. I didn't become a brave person because I watched Lord of the Rings in theaters when I was 15.
I think that anybody who read the Lord of the Rings novels as a child will tell you that that helped them to become a brave person later.
Great. I read Lord of the Rings to my kids. Not letting
Exactly.
them watch Marvel
And
yet.
Comic books and Marvel and those kinds of things are the modern version of the Lord of the Rings. It's the current thing that they have to go with to be a superhero. So kids have the ability to interact with this. And if we say, until you're 13, the scariest thing you can encounter is the fox and the hound, then that's a problem.
I was using your example.
There's got to be a middle ground here where you say, you know what? This isn't real. This is Red Hulk. This is a complicated story that a kid can follow. Kids can follow. Like if you've seen kids follow Pokemon lore, they can absolutely follow Marvel lore. And that tells you that you can expand this kid's, reach, their horizons, what they can be expected to remember. If they can know what order in which these Marvel villains appeared, then they can learn the presidents of the United States and which constitutional amendments came when. Like if we're not asking these kids to embrace a more complicated storyline by the age of 10 and come up with more complicated conflicts by the age of 10, then I think you're going to run the risk of finding somebody who can't encounter conflict by the age of 14.
I disagree, but that's totally fine.
It is totally fine.
My kid's doing just fine. Not ready to watch Marvel yet.
Okay. Well, and this is the whole point of this podcast, right? It's like we have sort of different perspectives on how you can look at it. So whatever parents are doing out there, take your bet for it. So what age would you say this one is appropriate
We didn't
for?
even go shepherd or share.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I love the movie.
That was my shepherd conversation.
That was your shepherd. Mine is I love the be authentic, be true to yourself theme throughout the entire thing. Don't try to be other people. And at the same time, you do need heroes. So you need to be your authentic self, and there's okay to look up to people, right? So you see Captain America just comparing himself the entire time to the old Captain America and saying, I can't live up, I can't be. Did he admire him? Sure, but that's not what he was doing. He was having a hard time filling in his shoes.
Right.
And then you've got Falcon, this new guy who's trying to become Falcon, who is like, I wanted to be like you my whole life. But he's not saying I want to be you. He's like, I want to be like you. So it's good to have good role models, and there's a good conversation to have there. And then I thought it was super fun. I probably would watch it. I'd probably watch it. I think that I'll do most Marvel movies when my oldest is 12, which means that my middle will be 11 and my daughter would be 8.
Cool. I like it.
It's only 2 years off of you. Everyone's just sitting there yelling at me. Go ahead.
I'm not yelling at
you
you.
think it's fine for 10.
I do. I think it's totally appropriate for 10, or if they have older siblings, you could probably do it younger, like you're talking about with Kiara.
Did I just gaslight you? Is that what gaslight means?
Huh?
I said you were yelling at me, but you weren't yelling at me. Is that gaslighting?
Yes.
People say that all the time.
I know, but they usually use it wrong.
Yeah, I was not trying to gaslight you, but I don't know what that means, so maybe I was.
And I also don't care.
I want to take him to Yellowstone.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like real peril.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Look a grizzly in the eyes.
Sure. But like this is the thing, is that kids don't view Superman as a thing that's for them anymore. Superman used to be a little boy's show. It was a show little boys
You're proving my
loved.
point. This is amazing. I'm with you. All these movies they're just making for us. They need to start making movies for kids.
But these are for kids. It's just the swears. Just take the swears out. Like, and I don't even care about the swears.
The swears don't bother me that much either. I didn't even mention the swears.
Yeah, the swears don't, like, I know that some of our viewers are going to care about the swears, and that's like the main things that parents are looking for. Is there sex? Is there nudity? Is there drugs?
Yeah.
Is there swears? And there's not all those first things. There's no sex, there's no drugs, there's no nudity. There are swears. But like, if that's all that matters for your kid is whether or not there's those things, and then you're okay with it if it's candy floss plot line, nothing complicated to follow. You don't have to recall anything from a prior movie. You don't need to know anything about character development. You can just Sonic 3 your way out of this. I think it's a bad thing for kids. Nice. And so, I think that Marvel movies are a good option. So when people are on the internet saying, oh, Marvel movies are just slop, they are if you're an adult. Like if you're a grown human who's supposed to know better and be able to follow something more complicated, yeah, but this is completely appropriate for what we should be expecting children to be able to follow and obtain.
I want people to know that I am 100% on your side, kind of, in that you would say that most Marvel movies are for kids 10 and up.
Yeah.
Therefore, in order to know, notable exception, go watch our old episodes. And that means that if you start watching the Marvel movies when your kids are 10, by the time they get to this one, they'll be 12. So I'm right.
I mean, depending on how long you take to watch a movie, yeah, they could be 40 by the time you get to this one. So, yeah. So there you go. There's some things to think about as parents. I'm just getting really frustrated with the idea that movies that are supposed to be for kids, superhero movies are supposed to be for kids. And now we call them bad movies because they're not challenging to adults. But they're still appropriately challenging to children. Maybe stop trying to make them for adults. Make them truly for children.
I like it.
Here we are. Keep the same complicated plot line. Just
fine with it.
Except that it's for children.
Love it.
Yes. Okay.
Look at us.
Hey, if people liked this episode and wanted to hear us yell at each other some more, where would
they can go, you guys letting me. They can go to isthisforkids.com where you'll find everywhere that we are. We're very active on YouTube and Instagram. Make sure you check us out there. Give us a follow and compliment our outfits.
All right. Hey, there's just so much content for us to navigate through there as parents.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?